Okay, hello friends. We are back in the physiology classroom. Today trying to we'll try to finish the hemodynamic portion of the physiology. So last time we have talked about that turbulent flow. That if the Reynolds number is greater than 3000, we say turbulence is happening, and if it's less than 2000, it's streamline flow. Okay, and we said we are taking into account the rho dV by eta, the equation of RE. There is a word you may be coming across in your exam, that is critical velocity. Critical velocity means the velocity point. Once you increase that velocity, I'm speaking slowly because some people told me speak slowly, so I'll speak slowly. So every artery in your body is having a critical velocity. Okay, now if you increase a velocity which is greater than, if you increase the velocity to such amount that the flow becomes turbulent, we say this velocity is called turbulent velocity. This velocity is called critical velocity, sorry. So can I say laminar flow occurs till critical velocity? So laminar flow occurs till critical velocity. That is, this was a velocity, for example, it was 50. If I rise greater than 50, I will start getting turbulence. And if I am less than 50, I will be in streamline flow. In this case, I will get turbulence. So that means this 50 becomes a critical velocity. Are we able to understand, guys? So this 50 will become a critical velocity. That is the velocity above which the flow becomes turbulent. The flow becomes turbulent. And the velocity below which the flow remains streamline, laminar. Is it clear? Yeah. Okay. Last time we had read velocity, isn't it? The average velocity, V is equal to Q by A, isn't it? We had read an equation, V is equal to Q by A, in which we said V is the velocity, Q is the quantity. You can also use quantity or the amount of fluid. A is the total cross-sectional area. Okay, fine. Now see, that means if area is more, velocity will be less. That means if area is more, velocity will be less. Which is having the maximum velocity in your body? Aorta. Aorta has a velocity of approximately 35 centimeter per second. The aorta is having the velocity of 35 centimeter per second. 35 centimeter per second. That means aorta is having less cross-sectional area. Yes, it is with the least cross-sectional area. Can we understand now? It is with the least cross-sectional area. That's why the velocity is more. And what about capillaries? Sir, capillaries will be having a very less velocity in points, 0.5, 0.3 mm per second. 0.5, 0.3 mm per second is the velocity of the blood in the capillaries, because capillaries, all the total cross-sectional area is more. Is it clear? So if I give a table and I arrange my vessels according to velocity, who is having the greatest velocity? Velocity in descending order. Velocity of blood flow descending order. Okay, so aorta, then vena cava, then artery, then vein, then arterioles, then venule, and least capillary. This was about velocity. Okay, what about blood pressure? Blood pressure is maximum and in the aorta, isn't it? So aorta has the maximum blood pressure and vena cava has the minimum blood pressure. Vena cava has the minimum blood pressure. How to arrange the blood pressures? Okay, let us make a table for you again. The arrangement of blood pressures will be aorta the largest, highest blood pressure, then artery, then arterioles, then capillary, then venules, then vein, then vena cava. Fine. How to measure the velocity? How to measure the velocity of blood? Velocity of the peripheral circulation? Yeah, anyone? The velocity is measured by arm-tongue circulation. To measure the velocity of blood, you use this. What you do is, you take a bile salt preparation. You take a bile salt preparation. This bile salt preparation, you put it in a syringe and you inject it in your arm. Vein, okay? In the vein you are injecting it. Now you have to tell the patient that the time when the bitter taste appears in your tongue, just tell me at that time. When the bitter taste appears in the tongue, bitter taste appearance in the tongue, you have to note that time. Okay. Now what is the normal arm tongue circulation time? The normal arm to tongue, they say arm to tongue. I remember arm tongue circulation time, it's 15 seconds. So that means in 15 seconds, once you have injected this, within 15 seconds, he will tell you, I am feeling bitter taste in my tongue. Are we clear? So this is how we are measuring the velocity of circulation. Is it clear? Is it clear, friends? So arm to tongue circulation time, arm to tongue circulation time. Fine. That's good. So now tell me one thing. Which layer of your blood vessel is in direct contact with shear stress? Which layer of your blood vessel is in direct contact with shear stress? Nope, 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 nope. It's the endothelial layer. It is the endothelial layer which is in direct contact with the shear stress. So shear stress is mostly on the endothelial layer. Now I have to ask you another question. Which vessel is having the maximum shear stress? The shear stress is maximum in arterioles. Maximum in arterioles. Because we know V is equal to du by dr. V, shear rate. This is actually shear rate. I hope you know your physics. I'm using the physics concept. Shear rate is equal to du by dr. That is velocity by radius. So now you can calculate it, isn't it? So maximum in arteriole and minimum in vena cava. So arterioles and capillaries. But if they ask you choose one, arterioles or capillaries, you have to choose arterioles. Okay. Now another thing, if they tell you what about veins, if you have to choose between the veins and vena cava, so you will use large veins. Large veins greater than vena cava. So shear stress is more in large veins than in the vena cava. Both have high shear stress, but large veins have more. Arterioles more than the capillaries. Fine, is it clear? Now yesterday I had told you a resistance concept, isn't it? I had told you R total is equal to series R1 plus R2 plus R3, and I had told you in parallel arrangement it becomes 1 by RT is equal to 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2 plus 1 by R3 and dash 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 dash. Okay. Now yesterday we said that vasoconstriction, isn't it? Now in the pharmacology, for the first year people, in the pharmacology, the drug we can use to increase the vasoconstriction of arterioles, okay, is alpha 1. Let me write alpha 1 agonist. Alpha 1 agonist, for example, phenylephrine. Okay. You have also some norepinephrine producers. What are those? Ephedrine, amphetamines, tyrosine. Not tyrosine, tyramine. Sorry. What else can vasoconstrict? You can give reuptake inhibitors. Reuptake inhibitors like cocaine, tricyclic antidepressants. So these are the things which can vasoconstrict. Fine. What are the natural vasoconstrictors in your body? Epinephrine. This is also a natural one, epinephrine. What else? Yeah. ABP. Do you know ABP? Arginine vasopressin, isn't it? It acts on which receptor? V1 receptor. It acts on V1 receptor, guys. What is the intermediate protein? GQ. GQ protein, isn't it? Like way we have angiotensin 2. This is also a vasoconstrictor. Angiotensin 2 acts on what receptors? AT1 receptors. Angiotensin 2 acts on AT1 receptors. Angiotensin 1, angiotensin 2 acts on AT1 receptors. Also same GQ protein. Also same GQ protein. Are we clear? Are we clear? Means I am telling you how you can vasoconstrict. So alpha 1 agonist we give in the phenylephrine, ephedrine, amphetamine, tyrosine, reuptake inhibitors, cocaine, tricyclic antidepressants. And your natural are epinephrine, arginine vasopressin. It's a V1 agonist. And angiotensin 2 which acts on the AT1 receptors, and the protein involved is GQ protein intracellularly. Okay. Now what happens in sepsis? What happens in sepsis? You have, your resistance is gone. Who was the major resistance? Who was the major resistance in your body? Who is behaving as the major resistance? Arterioles, they were having those faucets. If I open them all, you will go to septic shock. So septic shock, anaphylactic shock. So remember in sepsis you have what? Your mean arterial pressure goes down. Your mean arterial pressure goes down. Have I taught you mean arterial pressure someday? I'll be teaching you that, don't worry. Okay, mean arterial pressure. So your MAP goes down. MAP goes down. Fine. Because mean arterial pressure, what is the equation of mean arterial pressure? Mean arterial pressure is equal to, if I know from the cardiology, cardiac output into total peripheral resistance. Cardiac output into total peripheral resistance. Because MAP is talking about flow. MAP talks about flow. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. MAP talks about pressure. Pressure. Flow. Resistance. Again, the same story, guys. Pressure flow resistance kahani. They call it pressure flow resistance kahani. Delete. Is it clear? So now you can understand TPR is gone, resistance is gone. Yes, sir. MAP will go down. MAP will go down. MAP will go down. So this can happen in what? Neurogenic shock. It can occur in anaphylactic shock. Fine. I'll be teaching you these in detail. Now talking about, this was about arteries or arterioles. Let me tell you something about vasodilation. Vasodilation. What will happen in vasodilation? Your MAP will decrease in vasodilation, isn't it? Because you are dilating the vessels, that means they will accommodate more blood in them. Venous return, you are decreasing the venous return if you are vasodilating the. I'm talking right now about the arterioles. I should make it clear. Let me remove this. I'm sorry. Let me tell you in this way. Vasodilatation of arterioles. Your MAP goes down if you vasodilate them. Your MAP will go down. If your MAP goes down, that means more flow will happen to the capillaries. It means more flow will happen to the capillaries, isn't it? Okay. So it's factual. It does not need any energy. It's factual, my dear. It's factual. I have taught you everything. Because I will be teaching you in the central regulation of blood pressure how these things are happening. These are some points which is, you have to write. Okay. You have to write these points. It does not need any explanation because I taught you everything. Vasodilatation you give, vasodilation will happen. Your MAP will decrease. Mean arterial pressure will decrease because you are dilating. Pressure will increase when you are giving more resistance. It's the same story. Okay, easy. So what will happen in the arterioles if you are getting what? If you want to vasodilate the arterioles, what you have to do? You will be decreasing the sympathetic activity. You decrease the sympathetic activity, you will be having what? Vasodilatation of arterioles. That means I should decrease the norepinephrine. If I decrease the norepinephrine, what will happen? I will be less stimulating the alpha 1. You have alpha 1 on your blood vessels. Alpha 1 does vasoconstriction. Remember, alpha 1 vasoconstriction. Alpha 1 vasoconstriction. Alpha 1 vasoconstriction. Alpha 1 vasoconstriction. Beta 2 vasodilation. Beta 2 vasodilation. Alpha 1 vasoconstriction. Alpha 1 vasoconstriction. Beta 2 vasodilatation. Beta 2 vasodilatation. Is it clear? So I am telling you now. If I am decreasing the vasoconstrictive action, what will happen? Mean arterial pressure will go down. What a beautiful concept. Mean arterial pressure will go down. Okay. If I give more epinephrine, what I will be doing? I will be increasing the beta 2. Beta 2 cause vasodilatation. Beta 2 will cause vasodilatation. That is what skeletal muscle is doing. I love this concept. That is what skeletal muscle is doing when you have to run or you have to do exercise. What does it do? It wants more blood. What it will do? It will vasodilate its capillary vessels. It will vasodilate its vessels to get more blood. That means beta 2 activation. God, a beautiful God. Beta 2 activation will lead to vasodilatation, more blood coming to the muscles, more blood coming to the muscles, more blood coming to the muscles. Next we have nitric oxide. Nitric oxide. You know this beautiful Do we know this nitric oxide? Beautiful, 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 beautiful molecule. Do we know this beautiful molecule? This beautiful molecule was in the Science magazine. In the Science magazine in 1992, I think 1992. It's written in your books also. I think in the 1992 it was reported as the molecule of the year. Reading CSS, isn't it? It was regarded as the molecule of the year. Science magazine 1992. Nitric oxide. Nitric oxide. Who is producing it? Vascular endothelium. Why my pen is working slowly? I think I need to change the tip. Vascular endothelium. I have already them here, but I don't know what to start repair task right now. Otherwise, our study will halt. So this vascular endothelium will be producing this nitric oxide, and this nitric oxide will finally give us a increase in the CGMP system. A CGMP activity will be getting increased. This CGMP will lead to relaxation. I have taught you the mechanism last time. Okay. What else can vasodilate? What else can vasodilate? This was about your natural vasodilators. What about pharmacology? So we have hydralazine. I have hydralazine. Let me write why it's writing so slowly. Hydralazine produces NO. Once you give hydralazine, it's a vasodilator. You can give alpha 1 blocker. Alpha 1 blocker. Trazosine. Terazosine. Toxazosine. I love pharmacology. Toxazosine. Trazosine. Terazosine. You will block. Once you block alpha 1, what will happen? You won't be constricting. Oh my God. You want your vessels to vasodilate. Who was constricting? Alpha 1. Who was constricting? Alpha 1 receptor present on the blood vessel. If you block that receptor, that means no alpha 1 action will happen. That means your blood will vasodilate. Is it clear, first year people? I am preferably talking about first year people. Is it clear? So alpha 1 blocker, trazosine, terazosine, toxazosine. Okay. Beautiful medical science. You can give calcium channel blocker. Calcium channel blocker. What is the calcium channel blocker you can give? Nifedipine. Nicardipine. Clear? You can give potassium channel openers like you have in your market minoxidil for increasing your hair growth. Potassium channel opener. Oh God, give me more knowledge about medicine. Potassium channel opener gives us potassium conductance. It increases the potassium conductance. Why it's not working? What is happening today? Potassium conductance. What will happen? You will have, what you will have? Hyperpolarization. What is the drugs which are potassium channel opener? Minoxidil. You get in your hairspray, isn't it? But it increases your terminal hair, not your basic hair. Okay, I'll be teaching in dermatology. No, alpha 1. See guy, he's having the doubt. Again I will tell you. See, I will write like this. Write alpha 1 constriction, alpha 1 constriction, beta 2 dilation. Now if I block this, what will happen? Dilation. If I stimulate this, what will happen? Dilation. If I block this, what will happen? Constriction. Is it clear? Why are you confused? We are letting you study in oriented manner. I told you alpha 1 constriction. That means if I don't stimulate alpha 1, I will have dilatation. Or I will not be having vasoconstriction at least. Okay. Minoxidil and what was the other name? Diazoxide. That's a secret. Okay, yeah. That's what doctor learns. Okay. I don't know. Maybe. Okay. So minoxidil and diazoxide. This is how you are using these as vasodilators. Is it clear? Is it clear, friends? Who is having doubt? I have given you everything here. Everything, guys. Everything. Believe me. I give you everything. I want to blast this every subject with all the love and care. Yeah. So what are the drugs we are using as vasoconstrictors, guys? We are using, yeah, speak. We are using what? Yeah, please speak. For the sake of God, yeah. Angiotensin. In natural, if you talk, that is epinephrine. Angiotensin 2, ABP. What else? Alpha-1 agonists, phenylephrine, ephedrine, amphetamines, tyrosine, cocaine, TCH. What about the vasodilators? We give nitric oxide. We have, what to say, nitric oxide, increasing the CGMP system. Also, we have local vasodilators in our body. The local vasodilators in our body are adenosine. Why it's not writing? What happened? Adenosine. We have carbon dioxide as vasodilator. We have potassium as vasodilator. We have protons. That local tissue factors. If you locally produce these factors, you will have vasodilatation. You will have vasodilatation, guys. If you locally produce these factors in the tissue, you will be having vasodilatation. You will be having vasodilatation. Vasodilatation. Yeah. Any doubt? Any doubt? Now going to the law. This law is Laplace law. Laplace's law. Laplace's law tells us a relationship. That relationship is called as distending pressure and tension relationship. Distending pressure and tension relationship. It says, if I have a wall, if this is a wall of a, give me an example. If this is the wall of a cylinder, if this is the wall of a cylinder, let me take this cylinder. And if I want to calculate the tension will be equal to the product of the pressure produced on the wall and also the radius. How we would understand? So T is equal to PR by W. T is equal to PR by W. Means if I have a wall, cylindrical wall, the wall of a cylinder, the tension produced, this is the tension produced will be equal to the pressure in that vessel and the radius divided by the thickness of that wall. This is the wall thickness. This is the radius of that vessel. Is it clear? But if you have a thin-walled vessel, you should use this equation. What P is equal to 2T by R. Why, sir? 2T by R because, sir, wall thickness is not there. So we remove that W. So P is equal to 2T by R. P is equal to 2T by R. Is it clear? Is it clear, friends? So P is equal to 2T by R is equal for thin-walled vessels. And for thick-walled vessels, T is equal to PR by W is equal to PR by W. Is it clear? Just remember it, don't go into mathematical. You don't need that mathematical. You just need to have an understanding. Okay. Now if I make if I say like this, what to say? Sir, this is a capillary. Small capillaries. Sir, you said there you have a high pressure, and you said capillaries have a high pressure system. Capillaries are high pressure system. Why don't they rupture? Capillaries are high pressure system, not high pressure. I should use the word, sorry, I should use like this. Capillaries have thin walled, but they don't rupture. Capillaries are thin walled, but they don't rupture. That is where the Laplace genius, salute to him, comes into play. He says, if you have a smaller radius of the vessel, if you have smaller radius of the blood vessel, your tension will be less. How will you understand? So there will be less wall tension in the capillary. There will be less wall tension in the capillary. Now I tell you an example. For example, my BP is normal. My BP is normal. Okay, my BP is normal. And aorta, for example, there is a, for example, how much to say, 1,50,000 dynes per centimeter. For example, in aorta, there is 1,50,000 dynes per centimeter what? Tension. And if I talk about vena cava, there will be more than this. For example, not more than this, less than this. Let me take 10,000 dynes per centimeter. 10,000 dynes per centimeter. But do you know capillaries will have just 10 dynes? Capillaries will have just 10 dynes. Are we able to understand? Can you see how much the tension is reduced? Is it clear? This is the first application of Laplace's law. He says the above equation he is using, he is saying smaller the radius, lower will be the tension. Lower will be the tension which I need to balance that pressure which is distending that. Is clear? So less wall tension will be produced in the capillary. Okay. Also in the heart we use this Laplace. If you have a heart which is more dilated, if you have a dilated heart has to work more as compared to your normal heart. So if you have a normal heart which is not dilated, you have a normal heart which is not dilated, the work will be nicely done. But in this case, dilated heart, more work is to be done. More work is to be done. Is it clear? So what happens? For example, this is the heart chamber. Okay. This is the heart chamber. Now, if I increase the radius of this vessel, if I increase the radius of this chamber, I make it more like this, what will happen? More tension will increase, isn't it? Equation. More tension will increase, tension will increase, tension will increase, isn't it? So that greater tension will try to produce what? That high pressure, isn't it? It has to throw those things out. If it is dilated, it has to, more blood will be accumulated there. So it has to work more. It has to work more. Pressure high, isn't it? That pressure which you need, it has to work more. So a dilated heart has to work more. This will be explained more in the cardiology. Just giving you the so this is the principle where we are applying this capillary and we are using this principle in the capillaries and the heart. Okay. Now talking about another principle very important, that is Bernoulli's principle. Bernoulli principle says if I insert a cannula, have you seen a cannula? Think like like this. Think like this. Okay. So we insert this cannula into the artery. I insert this cannula into the artery. Okay. And I attach a mercury manometer. You know your blood pressure machine, same. Okay. That is also a mercury manometer. Okay. Now what I do is I tie the artery here. I tie the artery. Okay. beyond this point of cannula, I will be appreciating an end pressure, isn't it? Will I be appreciating an end pressure? Yes, sir. We will be appreciating a end pressure. We will be appreciating here an end pressure, isn't it? End pressure. End pressure will be appreciated. This end pressure is measuring total energy. Total energy. This end pressure is measuring the total energy. Why this is disappearing? Yeah. Okay. Total energy. Okay, I have to use the pen. Total energy is being measured by this. Now I put a T tube like this. If I put a T tube into this vessel, the pressure will be measured in the sides. The pressure will be measured in the sides, or we call it lateral pressure. Lateral pressure will be recorded. And can I say what is this pressure is equal to the pressure which is exerted by the fluid on the vessel walls? So can I say it is a potential energy? Yes, it's a potential energy. So lateral pressure is measuring the potential energy, and pressure is measuring the total energy. So end pressure, this end pressure, when I'm totally blogging, end pressure is measuring the, I hope you remember your physics, end pressure is measuring the total energy, lateral pressure is measuring the potential energy. Okay. Now if I minus them, what if I difference them, if I difference the end and side pressures, the difference will be because of a half of mv square. Do we know half of mv square? Kinetic energy. The difference will be because of half of mv square. So kinetic energy is equal to half of mv square. Half of mv square, where m is the mass, v is the velocity. So the difference between these two pressures will be because of the kinetic component, isn't it? It will be because of the kinetic component. So what does Bernoulli's principle says? Bernoulli's principle says the total energy of a blood in a blood vessel is equal to the addition of potential energy plus kinetic energy. Potential energy, kinetic energy. And he said the total addition of these two, or the total addition of potential and kinetic energy at any point in a system is constant. There's something mathematical which you just have to remember or understand. Okay, it's equal to the constant. It's constant. Okay. Now I will give you a medical application. Okay. For example, I'm having itching in my eyes. I think I should use a nefazoline drop, isn't it? So that I can vasoconstrict and congestion can go, isn't it? See, same thing happened also here. Concept of vasoconstriction, where we are using what? Nefazoline hydrochloride, phenylephrine hydrochloride, and you can be also using some artificial teardrops, that is camphor, methyl, hydroxypropyl, methyl cellulose, isn't it? We are using those things. So, by the way, where was I? I'm talking about Bernoulli's principle. Bernoulli's principle, if I see its application, means if something is getting consumed, no, if you are making any energy, you have to consume something. You have to consume one energy. That is one application. If you want to increase one form of energy, you have to consume another form. That is, if you are increasing, like if you are increasing the velocity of the flow, the lateral pressure must decrease so that the total energy remains constant. Sir, again tell us. We want the total energy to remain constant. We want the total energy to remain constant. How will you be making constant? One you want to increase, one you have to decrease, then it will be only it will be constant. Otherwise not, isn't it? So for example, I am narrowing a vessel. Let us give you an example. I am narrowing a vessel. Now, wherever you have done the narrowing, the velocity will increase. The velocity in this portion will increase. But the pressure will decrease. For example, this is an atherosclerotic plaque. In atherosclerotic plaque, there is narrowing of blood vessel. That means the lateral pressure at this constrictive point, the lateral pressure at this constrictive point is acting as a T, is decreased. And this narrowing will try to maintain that pressure. This narrowing will try to maintain that pressure. Is it clear? So the lateral pressure at the constriction is decreased, and the narrowing, this narrowing will tend to balance that pressure. Is it clear? Is it clear? This all requires your, I think, imagination or something. So because we have learned decrease in the cross-sectional area will increase the velocity. That's why the lateral pressure is decreasing. That's why the lateral pressure is decreasing. Once you increase the velocity at this moment, lateral pressure will decrease, guys. So beautiful concept. Is it clear? Is it clear, friends? Okay. Can we start? Can we talk something about, this is all about the pressures. Can we talk some, something special about coronary circulation? Coronary circulation, heart circulation, lung circulation. Let us talk something in terms of hemodynamics. Coronary circulation. Coronary circulation means the circulation concerning the heart. If I talk about the coronary circulation, the main thing is that if this is the heart, I will be teaching you in cardiovascular. If this is the heart, this is the heart. So we have what? We have right coronary artery, and we have a left coronary artery, and we have left circumflex artery, and we have left anterior descending artery. So the left main coronary artery will divide into left circumflex artery and left anterior descending artery. These are the branches of left coronary artery. Left coronary artery, left circumflex artery, and left anterior descending artery. And right coronary artery is there. Right coronary artery is from this side. Where do they originate from? They originate from the base of aorta. They originate from the base of aorta. Okay. What are the openings present in the base of aorta? Those are called coronary ostia. Coronary ostia are the small openings through which the blood will go into. Where are these present? I will tell you. If this is the aorta which is coming from the left side of the heart, it is left ventricle. These are the aortic valve leaflets. These are the aortic valve leaflets, okay? Aortic valve leaflets. These aortic valve leaflets, behind these, you will be appreciating what? Coronary ostia, giving the circulation to the heart. Is it clear? Right and left coronary vessels. Is it clear? I have to teach this in detail in the diagram. Just telling you something. I'm here concerned about hemodynamics, not about heart. I'm here about the circulation. So that means whatever is the pressure in the left ventricle, whatever is the pressure in the left ventricle, that pressure will be conveyed to the aorta. Whatever is the pressure in the left ventricle, that will be equal to the pressure in the aorta. Okay. Fine. So whatever is the pressure in the aorta will be equal to the pressure in the coronary vessel. I should say like this. Let me make it more of a vessel type. If I have more pressure in the aorta, I will be having more pressure in the coronary vessels, isn't it? If I have a difference of aortic and ventricular pressure, are we oriented, guys? Excuse me, are we oriented? So if we have a pressure difference between the aorta and the ventricle, it will be equal to the coronary perfusion pressure. The difference between aortic pressure and ventricular pressure will be equal to coronary perfusion pressure. And it is this coronary perfusion pressure which will tell me what is the blood coming to the ventricular myocardium. Please remember this concept. This will be telling me what is the blood flowing into the ventricular myocardium. Okay, so I should make a statement like this: coronary perfusion pressure is directly proportional to perfusion pressure and also the perfusion time, and is inversely proportional to vascular resistance, isn't it? Can I develop a relation like this? Coronary perfusion pressure is directly proportional to perfusion, coronary blood flow, CBF is directly proportional to perfusion pressure. What is the perfusion pressure? That is also determined by the difference in the pressures between aorta and ventricular pressure, isn't it? And also to the perfusion time. How much time you have been perfusing that region? Perfusion is blood supply. How much time you have been perfusing that area, that will be also determining that. And if you are increasing the vascular resistance, you will be having a increasing the vascular resistance, you will be having a decreased coronary blood flow, isn't it? Coronary blood flow will decrease once you have an increase in the vascular resistance. Is it clear? Is it clear? So what should be the pressure difference so that the blood can flow in the myocardium? What is the pressure difference so that pressure difference should always be positive? This you have to remember. If pressure difference between aorta, and ventricle is positive, aorta and ventricle is positive, you will say myocardium is receiving the blood. Okay, clear? Okay. When do, please write a question. When do the heart components receive blood? When do the heart components receive blood? Number one, let us start from left ventricle. We are too concerned about two. Left ventricle receives its blood during early diastole. It receives its blood during early diastole. We will be teaching you in detail in card when once we start the heart. But remember, for now, it is in which phase of early diastole? Isovolumic relaxation phase. Isovolumic relaxation phase. When does the right ventricle receive the blood? During systole plus diastole. During systole plus diastole. But if they ask you when more, more during systole. More during systole rather than diastole. Left ventricle is receiving blood during diastole. Which phase? Isovolemic relaxation phase. Right ventricle receives blood both during systole and diastole, but more during systole rather than diastole. Is it clear? Did you understood? So during, if I have a diastolic failure, which will be affected more? It is the left ventricle if I am having a diastolic failure. If I am having a systolic failure, right ventricle is going to get compromised. Right ventricle. I love cardiology. Okay. Now, factors regulating coronary blood flow. Which factors will regulate the coronary blood flow? Number one, local metabolites. Local metabolites. Take the red pen. The people who are joining late, I will ask them in the end on the audio. Local metabolites. Number 2. Oxygen consumption. The more you have an oxygen consumption, the more your heart is working, the more will be the coronary blood flow. That is called active hyperemia. Active hyperemia. The more you are consuming the oxygen, the more you will get red. The more you will get red. So whatever oxygen you are consuming, that will be directly proportional to the coronary blood flow. But the vessel should not be diseased. The vessel should not be diseased. Local metabolites will increase the coronary blood flow. I'm sorry. Okay, so if you have a more metabolic activity going on, you will be having more amount of coronary blood flow. Okay, O2 consumption increases active hyperemia. Okay, please write a question. At what mean arterial pressure coronary blood flow remains constant? These are all factual things. They don't require any explanation. Okay, this is evidence based, and you have to understand. There are so many things in medicine which you have to understand, which you have to learn also, because they are just facts are to be learned. There is nothing we can do for this. So at what mean arterial pressure? So between 60 to 200 mmHg, the coronary blood flow remains constant. Okay. If I want to give you an example of metabolite, I can give you adenosine. Adenosine is the most important factor which is causing the active hyperemia. And what else I had told you in the above examples: proton, potassium, carbon dioxide, lactate, prostaglandins. These all will be regulating your coronary vessels. These are coronary vasodilators. What we call them? Coronary vasodilators. Coronary VDs. Is it clear? By the way, can any one of you tell me what is the normal oxygen consumption per minute by 100 grams of heart? I love cardio. Remember, the oxygen consumed by 100-gram mass of heart is 9.7 ml per minute per 10 gram per 100 gram. Sorry, not 10 gram, 100 gram. Okay. Carbon dioxide. Okay. Carbon dioxide, guys, not calcium. Calcium will be a metastatic calcification. It will kill a person. Don't say calcium. Don't give me heart attacks, guys. Okay. If someone has a cardiac arrest, if someone has a cardiac arrest, what is the O2 consumption? Fabina will tell me. What is the O2 consumption in an arrested heart? 2 ml per minute per 100 grams. Okay, so let us talk about the effects of sympathetic and parasympathetic on coronary circulation. Effects of sympathetic and parasympathetic on this coronary circulation. See, listen to me, my guys. See, if you activate the sympathetic, let me say like this: if you activate this system, what will happen? You will have a vasoconstriction. By what receptors? Dash. By what receptors? Dash. By what receptors, my dears? What receptors? Alpha 1. You will have alpha 1 vasoconstriction. But this is only a transient vasoconstriction. Sympathetic causes only a transient vasoconstriction. Transient vasoconstriction. Once you have this small vasoconstriction action, there will be now a vasodilation. Why? Sir, vasodilator metabolites will start increasing. Okay, who is doing that? Because sir, beta receptor will be working more. In the heart, we have beta 1 receptors. Once we have a sympathetic stimulation, our heart gets stimulated by beta 1. Beta 1 causes sympathetic flow, beta 1. Isn't it? It's an adrenoreceptor. It's an adrenoreceptor in the myocardium. Okay. So in short, to make it brief, how to say, activation of sympathetics leads to alpha 1 adrenergic receptor activation, will lead to transient vasoconstriction followed by a vasodilatory phase because of the metabolites produced because of the metabolic activity of the heart. So it is the pump who is doing everything. It is the pump who is doing the everything. Therefore, I say sympathetic activation to the heart will lead to coronary vasodilation because I have to work more. I am increasing more metabolites. I need more heart rate. I need more contractility. So that means sympathetics will have, I am talking about heart, isn't it? Heart vessels. That's why I'm saying sympathetics will increase the coronary vasodilation and also the blood flow to the coronary system will be increased. So remember, sympathetics will increase the coronary vasodilation. Should they vasodilate or not? They should vasodilate. They should vasodilate. And finally will lead to increase in the coronary perfusion. Are we getting, guys, or we are sleeping? Some people are fasting or they are sleeping. Yeah. Some people are fasting and they are sleeping too. I feel like that. No, you should not sleep because it's easy concept. Coronary vasodilation, you dilated the vessels. What will happen? Coronary flow will increase. Coronary blood flow will increase. Why? Why? What is the reason? Sir, metabolites are increasing. Sir, metabolic activity is increasing. Sir, heart rate is increasing. Sir, contractility is increasing. That means in spite of the vasoconstrictor effect of sympathetic activation, still you had what? Vasodilation. Isn't it? I told you first happens what? Vasoconstriction. It is, if you talk about sympathetic nervous system, they have a direct vasoconstrictor action. Listen to my words. I'm using whatever books I have learned, Harrison, whatever from I have learned, they are writing it very much beautifully. They used to say, even if you are using the direct vasoconstrictor action of the sympathetic nervous system on these coronary arteries, still you have a coronary vasodilation because of the metabolic activity. This concept very beautifully written, I think, in the Harrison textbook of internal medicine. It is writing, this is called functional sympatholysis. Isn't it a functional sympatholysis? You are breaking the sympathetic activity. Sympatholysis. Functional sympatholysis. This concept is called functional sympatholysis. Functional sympatholysis. Lysis means to break. So sympathetic means you are breaking the sympathetic activity. Why? Because you are able to see that in the sympathetic nervous system, we are having a direct vasoconstrictor action of alpha 1 receptors. But in this case, there is no direct vasoconstrictor action happening, but there is vasodilatation because of the increased metabolic activity, which is because of the increased heart rate, increased contractility, increased inotropic action, increased homotropic action, will lead to, again, increase in the blood flow to the coronary vasculature, is giving me a scenario of functional sympatholysis. Even if I'm having a direct, from the concepts of sympathetic nervous system, the principles are saying that the direct vasoconstrictive action happens because of the sympathetic nervous system activating the alpha 1 receptors. In this case, there is still, in case of vasoconstrictor reaction, you are having a vasodilatory reaction because of the metabolites being produced locally by the heart, because of the increased heart rate, because of the contractility, finally leading to the increased vasodilation, finally leading to functional sympatholysis. Are we clear? This concept is called functional sympatholysis. Can you explain to yourself the concept of functional sympatholysis? Can you explain to yourself the concept of functional sympatholysis? I love medicine. I don't know. This cardiology is so beautiful. Let us talk about the parasympathetic. Let us talk about the parasympathetic. This parasympathetic, I taught you last time, parasympathetic is controlling the heart by the vagus nerve. Whenever you listen to the word parasympathetic activity on the heart, listen vagomimetic effect, vagal effect or vagomimetic, vagal effect. Vagal effect means parasympathomimetic effect, parasympathomimetic effect. If you are using a parasympathetic effect on the heart, that means you are controlling the heart with the vagus nerve. You are controlling the heart with the vagus nerve. You are stimulating the vagus nerve. And it does, what is the effect of parasympathetic? Red pen. Modest coronary vasodilation. Modest coronary vasodilation. Modest coronary vasodilation. Okay, remember this word, modest coronary vasodilation. Why? Because sir, it is releasing what? Why this happens? Because you are releasing the acetylcholine directly on the coronaries. You are releasing, yesterday somebody was asking me on the phone. So I hope you are getting the answer. The student is in the class. It is because of the direct effect of acetylcholine released on the coronary vessels. But I want to tell you, once you activate the parasympathetic system on the heart, what will happen? The myocardial oxygen demand. The myocardium needs oxygen to work. The demand of oxygen will decrease. Why, sir? Because you're decreasing the heart rate. See, I will give you an example. This is the parent. These are parents. These are parents. Parent, mom and dad. Mom has a stick. Dad has a stick. Mom has a stick. Dad has a stick. This is their son. This is their son. What happens is his son, their son, the parents have a son, and this son is very good person. He is not crossing his limits. He is not crossing his limits. He is a very nice guy. He does not need any advice. He does not need any advice. He is on the track. He is learning medicine. He is working hard day and night. He is studying 14 hours a day. He is sitting at one place. He is also doing exercise also. He is, reading books, standard textbooks. Now you have this one stick and two stick. One stick and two stick. What will happen? Suddenly what happens? He goes into what? He changes, he deviates. He has an little bit of theta deviation. See what will happen if he has a theta deviation. He is going so far from the main line. This is what I advise to my students always. This is your straight path. This is your straight path. You have to follow this path. You have to work hard. You have to tackle the obstacles. You have to keep learning and learning and learning. You have to face hardships, but you have to study. You have to face hardships, but you have to study. But if you do something deviation of theta here, what will happen? Right now you are here, no problem, no problem. We can take you back, we can take you back. But here we won't take you back because you are so far from the main 180-degree line, or so far from the main 180-degree line. So the same way, if the heart is not following the principles of cardiovascular physiology, if the heart is beating at such a tremendous dynamic rate that you are not able to, the heart is going to fibrillation, the heart is beating at a rate of 300 beats per minute. What you will be doing, you will be activating the vagus nerve. He will come with a stick. He will say, oh, stop. He has vagus now. He has vagus. He has two sticks. What? Vagus has two sticks. Do you know two sticks? We have right vagus and left vagus. Right vagus is on the SA node. Left vagus is on the AV node. So he will say, yeah, what are you doing, guy? He will beat this. He will beat this SA node. He will say him, okay, stop. The heart rate should be maintained at 72 BPM. The heart gets reset due to vagal stimulation. So now, before this scene, before this, before this scenario, what I was telling you was a fibrillation. The heart was beating in fibrillation. The heart was in fibrillation, or heart was in tachycardia. There were tachyarrhythmia, for example, whether a ventricular tachyarrhythmia or a supraventricular tachycardia. But in this case, in that case, your heart was beating at a very, it was flying 300 beats, 400 beats. Okay, it was flying. So what you did, you gave the vagus activation. Vagus was activated, SA and AV node activated, stop the. So that means before in the ventricular fibrillation, or no, I will not say fibrillation because in the fibrillation the heart is not actually doing anything, but I want to tell about the ventricular tachycardia or a supraventricular tachycardia. The heart is working more, the heart is taking an oxygen demand, the heart is rising its oxygen demand. But once it's rising the oxygen demand, that means it needs the blood vessel to get dilated so that more amount of the blood is reaching to the heart. More amount of blood is reaching to the heart. So in this case, once you are activating the parasympathetic system here, you want to reset the heart. What will happen? Your myocardial oxygen demand will decrease. Your myocardial oxygen demand will decrease. That means your heart rate will decrease. Why? Your heart rate is decreasing. Heart rate is decreasing. That means you don't need more oxygen to work. You need less oxygen. So your demand is decreasing. What will happen? Again, I will repeat. Once we have a parasympathetic activation, there will be a decrease in the myocardial oxygen demand. Why? Because of the decrease in the heart rate. Meaning thereby, the metabolites which are being produced at that local site will increase the coronary vascular resistance, will constrict the coronary blood vessels, will decrease the coronary blood flow. Is it clear? My dears, brother, sister, people, world, anything who is in the class. Is it clear? Can we understand how this coronary vasculature is important before studying the heart? What some students do, they directly jump to the heart, but they don't know what is happening. So if I tell you I want to have a sympathetic activation, I should have a coronary vasodilatation. If I have a parasympathetic activation, if I want a parasympathetic activity, please increase the resistance. Increase the resistance, coronary vascular resistance. I will be having less blood coming to the heart because I want less oxygen. It's quite, the God is, it's all logic. How beautifully he has designed. Otherwise, you could keep on consuming oxygen and oxygen. Okay. And the problem is that yes, parasympathetics will cause. See, listen to my word. What I am telling you. Listen to my words. The metabolites which are being produced there, that internal metabolites. Okay, though whatever there is production of those metabolites, that will regulate. I'm not directly saying, please, the words, it's not that something is direct. Okay, so will increase the vascular resistance by constriction of the vessels, and coronary blood flow will decrease. I will be teaching you in great detail, my dear, in the cardiovascular. Here I am keeping it more restricted towards hemodynamics. Okay, don't let me go out of the hemodynamics, otherwise I will land into ECG. So what will happen in the, what is the reason why oxygen is getting more? Those contractions are more. Contractions will be more, myocardial oxygen demand will increase. Remember this fact. Anything which is causing an increase in the, please remember this word, anything which is causing increase in the cardiac muscle tension, anything which increases the cardiac muscle stretch, or something is developing inside the chamber, it's trying to open and open and open and open. The number of O2 which will be consumed, the myocardial oxygen consumption will increase. So that means who should be affecting the myocardial oxygen consumption? Myocardial oxygen consumption. We say it MVO2. We write in short MVO2. What is MVO2? Myocardial oxygen consumption. Myocardial oxygen consumption. Who will increase the MVO2? Who increases the MVO2? Heart rate. If you increase the heart rate, you will be increasing the MVO2. If you increase the inotropic action, you are increasing the MVO2. If you increase the afterload, you are increasing the MVO2. If you increase the preload, you increase the MVO2. But remember, the MVO2 which will be increased will be less, because you know the Laplace law. Laplace law. Is it clear? Is it clear? So what did you learn today? What did you learn today from this topic of oxygen? That is more concerned I am about the sympathetic and parasympathetic. That in the sympathetic, what is happening is directly we know from the basics of the nervous system, the endocrine also, that once we have a sympathetic activity, the vasoconstriction is increased by the help of alpha 1 adrenergic receptors. And once we have a transient vasoconstriction, that will be followed by a vasodilatory phase because of the vasodilator chemicals being produced by the metabolic activity of the heart. Why? Because, sir, once you increase the sympathetic activity, the beta 1 agonism will start to happen. The beta 1 receptor activity will start to increase because beta 1 receptors are present on the heart. Beta 1 receptors are present on the heart. And you know, beta 1 will respond to what? Sympathetic activity. Once you have sympathetic activation, beta 1 will respond. Once you have sympathetic activation, alpha 1 will respond. It's now the difference of the receptors that alpha 1 is present on the blood vessel, sympathetic adrenergic. Beta 1 is present on the heart, adrenergic beta 1. And that beta 1 is using that, it is stimulated by the sympathetic activity, will lead to more production of the metabolites, which will finally give that vasodilatory metabolite, leading to the vasodilatation of the blood vessels, and will finally vasodilate the coronary vessels. Please listen, the word coronary vasodilation means vessels of the coronary will be dilated. Please listen. Vessels of the coronary will be dilated. Is it clear? I am repeating the whole lecture again in 1 minute. And there will be coronary flow will be increased to the heart. That is more increase to the heart, because I am using more sympathetic. I have to get more oxygen. I need more oxygen. That means more blood should come to me. More blood should come to me. This is called, in spite of the vasoconstrictory action of the sympathetics, I am having a vasodilatation. The scenario is called as functional sympatholysis. Talking about the parasympathetics, I have a modest coronary vasodilation. And if I stimulate the parasympathetic activation, I will result in a decrease in the heart rate I will decrease the heart rate, will lead to decrease in the myocardial oxygen demand, will increase the coronary vascular resistance, will lead to constriction of the vessels, and will decrease the coronary blood flow. Is it clear? Because I don't want the oxygen. I want to regulate that flow. Is it clear? Then I told you what will determine the myocardial oxygen demand. It will be determined by the myocardial contraction. Whatever is doing mess with the myocardial contraction, that will be, if something is increasing the myocardial contraction, that will be increasing the myocardial oxygen demand. For example, if you increase the heart rate, you'll be increasing the myocardial oxygen demand. If you increase the contractility, you'll be increasing the myocardial oxygen demand. If you increase the afterload, you'll be increasing the myocardial oxygen demand. If you increase the preload, that will also increase the myocardial oxygen demand, but not more than expected, whatever you expect, because we are following the Laplace's law, which I will be teaching you. I hope you have enjoyed this lecture on the coronary circulation and also the hemodynamics, which we had learned from the beginning of this lecture. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. I'll be uploading more videos on this. I hope there is no doubt. If you have any doubt, please let me know. Thank you all. Take care and bye-bye.